Yes, friends of Radio Revolucion, as we told you before, here we have our program of January called Wealth, Having It All and Wanting More. As the world is moving in a direction of, as some call it, self-destruction, we want to bring some information that is not about that we are destroying ourselves. It is about how income is distributed in the planet today and how a very few, actually somebody was saying we can count it with our fingers, those very few are now accumulating more wealth than probably 99% of the population. We have received a report in which I will be sharing with you at this moment some of the information, not everything, of course, because it's a very long report. So the title goes Wealth, Having It All and Wanting More. And let me read it to you. Global wealth is increasingly being concentrated in the hands of a small, wealthy elite. These wealthy individuals have generated and sustained their vast riches through their interests and activities in many sectors of the economy across the world. So, as you know, in the economy today, there is just a minority that is making hundreds of billions of dollars at the expenses of the majority, and this is you can see it in finances, in the pharmaceutical, in healthcare, in the military industrial complex. As you can see, for instance, people in the developed world, for instance, probably in the United States of America, they get their medications. Somebody was saying sometimes 700% of the inflated prices, which basically all the profits go to a handful of families who are the owners of this, of, as somebody called it, the big pharma. And on that, you probably added all the millions of dollars that are spent on lobbying, which is a very nice word for bribing politicians across the planet so that they can pass legislation that will make the rich even richer. The report indicates that the most prolific lobbying activities in the United States are on the budget and tax issues, public resources that should be directed to benefit the whole population rather than reflect the interests of powerful lobbyists. And then, of course, we're going to be giving you the numbers in which now, in 2017, the people who have more pay less, and people who have less pay more in terms of when taxes come. The report says global wealth is increasingly being concentrated in the hands of a small, wealthy elite. Global wealth is becoming increasingly concentrated among a small, wealthy elite. And this is data coming from Credit Suisse, shows that since 2010, the richest 1% of people in the planet have been increasing their share of total global wealth. Also, needless to say that these 1% of the richest in the world are pretty much white and male dominating figures in the planet. And the study shows that in 2010 marks an inflection point in the share of global wealth going to this very, very small group of individuals in the planet today. In 2014, the richest 1% of people in the world owned 48% of global wealth, leaving just 52% to be shared between the other 99% of adults in the planet. Almost all of that 52% is owned by those included in the richest 20%, leaving just 5.5% for the remaining 80% of the population in the world. If this trend continues of an increasing wealth share in the richest, the top 1% will have more wealth than the remaining 99% of people just in 2 years. Friends of the world, we have data today that is telling us that unless we don't change these numbers, unless we don't turn this reality upside down, the world will be inhabited by probably 1% of the population at the expenses of the 99% of the population, because we are talking about here the difference between having and not having is the difference between life and death. What was the number the other day that they gave us? Anywhere between 15 to 20 million children die a year, every year, as a result of lack of water, lack of nutrition, lack of food, lack of clothing, lack of housing. Millions are dying every year. You don't see this in the major media and the major newspapers. What you see in the media is that if 2 people are killed in Paris because of a terrorist attack or in the streets of the United States and any other rich nation, then that makes it. Then that's a world news. It's a silent death of millions of children, that's to say the least, that nobody pay attention to. There is a figure here which talks about the share of global wealth of the top 1% and bottom 99% respectively. The dashed line, it says projected 2010-2014 trend. By 2016, which is last year, by now 1% of these people have more than 50% of the total global wealth. How can we fix the world when all the financial resources are in the power of the 1% of the population? If right now we have 15 to 20, 25 million children dying every year, that means that we're going to have to probably see that multiply by 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the near future. How are we going to let this happen? The very richest of the top 1%, the billionaires in that Forbes list, have seen their wealth accumulated even faster over this period. 2010, the richest 80 people in the world own almost $2 trillion. 80 people. And none of them, you're going to tell me, none of them have accumulated this vast wealth in a very honest manner. As the book indicated that we were reading the other day, there is no such a thing like an honest billionaire. Now the race is who is no longer who is gonna be a millionaire or billionaire, but the race is who is going to be the trillionaire, as we have several trillionaires already in the United States today. Somebody was saying for every $1 million that these people accumulate, anywhere between 5 to 10 million people will become poor. So they are becoming richer at the expenses of the vast majority of the population. Enough is to be saying that the world will change, that global warming is a threat when all the financial resources are being hidden in these powerful entities that these very powerful people, economically speaking, have put their wealth in what is called the fiscal paradise. By 2014, the 80 people who topped the Forbes list had a collective wealth of more than $2 trillion, an increase of $600 billion in just 4 years. If you read this figure, $600 billion, that is many times the GNP of many poor nations in the world today. If you look at it between 2002 and 2010, the total wealth of the poorest half of the world in current US dollars have been increasing more or less at the same rate as that of the billionaires. However, since 2010, it has been decreasing over this time. Where are we going at this? If this trend continues, we're going to have a vast number of humans living in the worst miserable conditions that have ever been witnessed before in the planet. The wealth of these 80 individuals is now the same as that owned by the bottom 50% of the global population, such that 3.5 billion people. If you don't understand what I say, I didn't say million, I said 3.5 billion people share between them the same amount of wealth as that of these extremely wealthy 80 people. Now, how we are going to let this continue? 80 people now have the equivalent of what half the population, meaning more than close to 4 billion people, have. As the wealth of everyone else has not been increasing at the same rate as that for the top 80, the share of total wealth owned by this group has increased, and the gap between the very rich and everyone else has also been increased. As a result, the number of billionaires who have the same amount of wealth as that of the bottom half of the planet has declined rapidly over the past 5 years. In 2010, it took 388 billionaires to equal the wealth of the bottom half of the world's population. Now, these numbers are numbers that I want you to keep in mind and if possible, memorize them as they are moving, as the day pass by, and they're not moving in the way that is going to benefit the 99% of the population. It's going to get their life more miserable. In this study, in January 2014, the institution Oxfam calculated that in 2013, 85 people had the same wealth as the bottom half of the world population, a number that was cited worldwide due to the extreme level of wealth inequality that it is illustrated. And the report is reminding us that this data comes from the list that this magazine, Forbes magazine, published. In this case, was in March 2013, and the data that is coming from the Credit Suisse Global Wealth Data Book. So you can check and go back to these sources, and understanding that there are some other sources of information as well now available. This is what some of you were saying. This is really what is killing the world. This is really what is killing the planet. And literally speaking, this is what is killing our children. 15, 20, 25 million children a year. The report goes on and it says wealthy individuals have generated and sustained their riches through interest in activities in a few important economic sectors. 2014, there were 1,645 people listed by Forbes as being millionaires. This group of people is far from being globally representative. Almost 30% of them are citizens of the United States of America. 30% is almost 492.